Very good. Well, good afternoon, everybody. We are thrilled to have you join us. My name is Ben Hoseas with the Lean Institute Africa. It is a real pleasure to probably not introduce, but bring to you Jan Erasmus, who's going to be presenting to us today on his Detroit benchmarking visit around operational excellence, looking at some of the history and the principles that he took away from that visit, I believe, at the end of last year, so very recent in terms of his learning and for our learning purposes. So Jan, as you see, is an associate at the Lean Institute. We're very pleased to have him work with us. We'll talk more about another offering we have coming up with a workshop here in May. And he's also the director at Authentic Consulting, his own firm, and has a great number of associates within that network likewise. So Jan has a fantastic background, as I'm sure you're either aware or have learned, and has done some great work as a consultant, as an engineer, has published several articles and presented at several conferences around the world and been able to have experiences around the world in different engagements, namely Moldova, Estonia, Slovenia, Croatia, Japan, USA, etc. So we're pleased to learn from his wealth of knowledge, whether during a Lean Coffee event or during a webinar like this, or having him on site or having him as an executive coach. Jan brings a real nice energy and a real positivity to this Lean thinking. So Jan, we're really glad to have you with us. Please go ahead and take it away and share with us some of your learnings.
Thank you very much, Ben. So I'm just checking whether the sound is fine and whether you can see the slides.
Good on my end.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Ben, for that introduction. So a lot of people in this room that I've seen that has registered know me, and some people don't know me, but I've, for the past 30 years, I've been involved with continuous improvement in companies, and I've used several methodologies and lean and operations management methodologies. So the background of this visit is I was requested by a South African company to go and visit a good company in the States that is known in their big corporate group as a good benchmark for operational excellence. So I visited this company, and it's called Demand Detroit. And before I start, I would just like to have this disclaimer mention that all the photographs that I will share here is from the internet and from AI, and the video clips is from the internet. So I don't share any confidential information, but I would like to highlight my observations based on real solid operational excellence principle, and I would highlight things that has really impressed me in this organization. You can see a lot of the information you can find online of this organization. So they over the years they've been called Daimler Truck, Demand Detroit, Diesel Detroit, etc. And they primarily, maybe an expectation before I go into the detail of who they are is, today I cannot convey all the learnings in under an hour, from what I've learned. So it will be an injustice, and hence what Ben mentioned, there will be an opportunity later that we'll run a workshop, and a much more detail of this will be used in a workshop format. So my observation is also not based on theory or whatever, but rather than things that I've observed that I think is paramount to good operational excellence in organizations. So as we go along, maybe if I can request that if you have comments or questions, you can add it to chat. I'll run through some of my learnings, and then towards the end we'll have an opportunity for a little bit of questions and answers. So I think the first big comment I would like to make before I go into the company, one must understand that Detroit has always been the motor city, and its origins lies in the Ford Motor Company, the Durand, the Dodge brothers, the Packard brothers, the Chrysler guys, and we, all of us, know the story of the Model T Ford. And if you really look at the details, then you realize that Detroit is, and what Ford has done, and even these other car manufacturers, they've really set the tone for a lot of good practices that was replicated through other industries throughout the world. And it's also important to realize that if you look at Detroit as a city, part of Michigan state, they have really been seen, from the 20s as a automotive stronghold. And as such, they at some point in time became the fourth largest city in the world. And in the 1950s, Detroit peaked as the wealthiest city in the world. I'm not sure about how they measure it, but usually it's been measured by the GDP per capita in such an organization. So the reasons what I've picked up, in my interaction with them is in Detroit, and the car companies, including Ford and others, have really set the tone for good products and good operations practices that was replicated throughout other industries and the world. So the factory demand Detroit, or Diesel Detroit, is a factory that produces and assembles engines and gearboxes and axles for trucks and for buses. And as you can see from this picture, that see-through is actually the main products. They also have other types of products, but that's basically what the organization does. From the website information, again, it's not confidential information. They're seen as a production powerhouse in that area. They produce more than 400 big truck engines on a daily basis, about more than 250 transmissions on a daily basis, more than 1,300 axles per day. They roughly more than 3,000 people that work in that plant. It's a huge plant. And what's significant about this plant has really weathered the economic ups and downs of the world, but also of Detroit and the motor industry. And hence, they serve as a benchmark for good operations practices. On my way there, of course, I've seen something familiar, and I've seen Nelson Mandela also in some of the airports, and it was for me inspirational to see that these Mandela's picture was shown from a company called Pass It On. And then I arrived in Detroit, and I think everything was just big. The trucks are big, the cars are big, everything is big. And it was just significant. It's just getting bigger. And then I've also seen, coming back to the broader culture of cars, the Motor City. I mean, this is one of the old Ford Rangers that I've seen there in the parking lot of the factory, where people really look after their cars. And this old Ford Ranger really being beautifully restored and still being used as a daily runner. And why I say this is because I've picked up in the organization this broader culture of continuous improvement is really evident in the broader society at large. And that's quite important to mention that this company is situated in a broader culture that likes cars, that likes engines, that likes improvement. And of course, the eating is great, and the briskets in Detroit is just, the portions are sizable. To put it in context also, as Detroit has gone through some phases, you can see it's evident in the society as large. There was really wealth, and now you've got almost like a paradox of all. So coming back to the organization, the organization assembles these truck engines, and they use manual labor, they use labor, they use technology, advanced technology, and they use just plain basic operational excellence principles of time and load balancing, etc. So if I show you, and I'm going to quickly, Ben, you must help me here. I'm quickly going to go out and share with you just a quick video clip. Sorry, I'm going to go out here. I would like to share with you a video clip and show you one of the principles, because it's a free YouTube video. You can really look at it at the later stage, but I would like to just share with you how it looks like. So Ben, just help me here. Can you see this?
I can, yep.
This video clip. So it's a 1.5 minute video clip, and I would like to point out something in the video clip, please. So please help me if you can see it here, Ben.
We are a fully owned subsidiary of Daimler Trucks North America. We make all of the heavy-duty engines. We make the medium-duty and heavy-duty axles. And soon this fall, we're going to launch the heavy-duty transmissions.
Detroit Diesel and Daimler have a wealth of tools.
We are a very high-tech facility. I mean, many robots with the latest and greatest of technology.
As soon as I had the opportunity to see the facility, I was convinced that this was the place that I wanted to come and work.
There's so many opportunities in a large company like this. And, you know, you have the opportunity for travel. You have the opportunity to work with people in different areas of the world.
For somebody young that's technical coming out of school, it's a very exciting career opportunity.
When I hear the name Daimler, first thing comes to my mind is quality.
The beauty of working at Daimler is it's an enormous global company with so many systems and support, but being at Detroit Diesel, it's still a very small, almost family feel.
I learned so much since I've been here.
It provides on-site training.
Before I came in, I knew nothing about an engine. I knew nothing about manufacturing an engine.
And now I'm on the transmissions where I can hand build a transmission from the bottom up.
What makes Detroit Diesel a great place to work is the working environment.
You can really see the...
Ben, I would like to just stop it here, and this is one of the profound principles of operational excellence that I've observed, that the daily management system of visual management is really applied throughout the organization. Now, again, this is not confidential information that I share with you. This is online for free available. You can look at it. And you will see this is a typical meeting by management held on the shop floor, and it's supported by paper at the back. And top left, you'll see some computers, and recently behind this person standing and talking here, there's also a lot of computer monitors being put up lately and replacing paper stuff. They also use a microphone with speakers because sometimes it's quite noisy, and they have these daily meetings. So I want to point out that this is happening throughout the organization at large. Then I want to just maybe show you, this is on their website. This is again not confidential information, but this is almost like just the products that they make. Typical, you know, how it looks in the factory. And, you know, I would like to just share with you that you can also have a look and feel of the organization, and you can look at, for example, the housekeeping as you look at these this information. And then maybe a last one what I want to point out is this is typical, a little bit of a balance of robots, of people. And then the last thing I want to show, you know, a typical, the assembly line. And again, you can look at the housekeeping and, you know, and everything. Again, this is on their website. It's not confidential information, to just confirm. Okay, so this is just for you to have a feeling of what this organization was all about. Now, Ben, you will just help me here. I want to share with you the slides again. If we can go back to the slide. And just help me here that we can get the slides up again.
If you can expand it to full screen. Very good.
Okay, so all right, so that's just the context of the organization, and this is again a slide how it looks. So if we look at the housekeeping, it's quite exceptional, and the standard is evident throughout. So one of the first principles I would like to point out is these things that I've observed is they do the basics of operational excellence very well. So the first basic is housekeeping. Their housekeeping, their 5S standard is just exceptional, and it's not only when clients or auditors come and visit. You know, I've been spending 2 weeks there, and during that 2 weeks, the standard stayed the same, and everybody moved to that standard. Another profound basic was that timekeeping. I've attended roughly 4 meetings per day for 2 weeks, And not one meeting started late. All meetings started on time. And most of the meetings were actually finishing before the end of the meeting time. For me, it's one of the most profound basic things. And I cannot vouch for the reasons why they get it right, but it was so evident that doing that basic and no effort or focus or energy is spent on people that are not there, or wasted time, because people arrive on time, they have a meeting, they move on. And then the daily management system is just a cadence that's followed scrupulously every day. 7 levels of meeting in the organization held scrupulously every day, same time. That is not special tricks. That is a universal operational excellence principle. It's not for people in this webinar that's not used to what a daily management system is. The theory behind it is you have different levels of meeting every day, from a team leader and team members, the second level supervisors, team leaders, then the manager and supervisors, then senior managers and supervisors. And this company has got 7 levels of daily meetings where information is shared. So the daily management system as a good practice that's done daily is supported by a digitization strategy that data is sent to the point of use everywhere that I've observed. So they make use, as I mentioned, of paper, of TV monitors, and the proven Excel spreadsheet is also used in the organization at last. How they spend the effectiveness of meetings on a daily basis and also other meetings is that because data is supplied to people at point of use, they focus on exception reporting. So there's a culture that they have, that they talk to each other, and if there's a deviation from standard or there's a gap in performance, then the language that I was so impressed with as basic is the language would be asked, are you in charge of the problem? And then people would say, yes, we're in charge. And if they're in charge of the problem, they move on to the next thing. They don't stand and talk and make sure people understand the problem. They make sure that exception reporting is being discussed, but not everything at last. And the language of continuous improvement, the language is, we're on top of it. We know what to do. And there's no finger pointing to another department or somebody that could contribute to the solution that cannot contribute, or blaming another department. The language that they speak is that of continuous improvement. The language meaning, what can we do to fix it? Are you on top of it? Do you need assistance? Do you need support? That language is a very mature work culture that I've picked up. And the other small thing that I've also picked up that we don't realize, I mean, everybody in that company, I mean, everybody speaks English and people understand each other quite fast. So I think we underestimate the power of a common language like English, and everybody's language, English is the first language. So a lot of this effectiveness also comes from understanding language, apart from continuous improvement language. If we go back to the big picture again, I've, over the weekend, I visited the Ford factory to come and find out why this company is talking about Ford so much. And, we went through the museum and saw the original factory, and then I started reading and listening to what the people were telling us. And what I also realized that we mustn't underestimate this continuous improvement culture that Ford had. If you read the history there in the museum of Ford, then you pick up our language of they experimented with different configurations of how to make this more efficient, more productive, mass produce, using an assembly line. They used the job shop approach. Then they would move people to these structures, as you see on this picture. And then sometimes they would move the structure, and then they would move groups of people. So they experimented until they figured out what is the best way, and they've established that then as the benchmark for how the modern assembly lines of cars is still used. But it wasn't just an instant solution. They were experimenting. They also had what they call a secret experimental room where they locked themselves inside, and then a few people then played around with things before they went into production again. They were also talking as Henry Ford, sitting in his office using binoculars to look out of the windows to spy on the competition. And if he pick up what some of the competition are doing, then they go into the experimental room to see what they can do better. So there was this culture of really trying to do different things continuously to improve. And this culture that started, I mean, this is the 1910, 1920s. This culture is still prevailing in the broader Detroit as a society. What was also interesting for me, the Top Gear's General Clark, he said, if you were to ask which car company has produced the largest number of great cars, then you would say it's Ford, because they've produced this unique Ford Cobra and Ford GT and Ford Mustang, and there are so many of these unique cars, but that also came out of this culture that Ford had and still have, part of the continuous improvement culture. The second thing that I've picked up in the broader continuous improvement culture that I've picked up in the organization was the Detroit music industry, the Motown Records, which had a huge cultural impact. And they were known for their iconic sound, musical innovation, and in speaking to the people that were part of this Motown Records, we've picked up that their relentless drive for quality was part of this broader Detroit culture. And the key artists that came out of the Motown Records, and some of you in this webinar wouldn't most probably know these guys, but it's Stevie Wonders, the Contours, the Marvelettes, and these are the music that were made back that time. And in the studio, it was evident that they were really the same as what Ford were doing to try and experiment. They were also practicing and practicing and practicing. And in this studio, they would, and there's the piano of Stevie Wonder where he also played on. And they would come in and they would fine tune. And then the good guys would come back and come back and come back and do that. Now, that broader culture I've observed in this organization still after 50 years of this broader culture. So then coming back to what did I then pick up of the company, what they do well. That daily management rhythm is something that they say we don't deviate from the cadence because it produces variation in decision making. So if you have a daily management cadence where you talk about exception and you have data and you keep to that cadence, then your quality of decision making and variance, your variance of decision making is less because your system support you with what needs to do. And then that role modeling of having those shop floor meetings, which I've shown you on the video, they strongly believe in the value of transparency. They don't hide anything from the union. The union is very strong, but the union is strong on solid things. And they believe that if we are role models as managers and senior managers, then, and we are transparent, then people will trust us as management as well. So that's one of the, again, the basic things that I've picked up. The other thing that I've picked up is Gemba. Now, for people that don't understand the world or the word or the concept Gemba, it is what we call managing by walking around with intent. Those managers within a daily meeting have got the responsibility as managers, head of departments, to walk the floor and then to go to the real place, engage with the people, and engaging with the people is about what can I do to support, what are the things what are the standards that should be in place, and they've got a standard that they walk around with and measure their walk around against standards. And if there's a deviation from standards, so whether it is safety or housekeeping or standard operating procedures, then they address it there. And so on a daily basis, in between this daily management system, managers are expected to walk around. Maybe in terms of just this picture that I have, this is, I have pictures of managers on the shop floor, but this is an AI generated picture which clearly represents what I've seen in the organization. Apart from that, all heads of departments, all managers, supervisors, team leaders, managers are expected, according to a leader standard work, a recipe that they must do the Gemba, and they've got these prescribed standards. So I've seen some managers, again, this is an AI generated image, because I don't want to show confidential information, but there's a manager that walk around with a clipboard with standards, and he would walk around and he would engage with people, but not in an autocratic, paternalistic way, but rather in a mature way to say, what should we do to maintain the standard? And those daily walks is part of the daily management system that managers, the whole morning, they spend on meetings and walking around. And by midday, then they go to their offices. And that's just a profound leadership responsibility that managers have. Housekeepings, the managers, when they do the Gemba walkabout on the shop floor, they make sure that the standards are good, but they're not walking around like police. They only look for really big exceptions, because the standard is maintained by the teams themselves. Again, this is a AI generated picture. Is not a real picture of that, because I've already shown you the video clip of that. But the housekeeping in all hidden areas are just profound. It's not that one area is a scrap yard or something. It's the whole site is just a profound housekeeping standard. The daily management system is really supported by electronic scorecard. They've got paper, they've got acceptance reporting. And I want to emphasize, one of the best practices that I've observed here is that people don't have to look for information. Information is readily available in different forms. They use color coding when it's electronic format of reds and greens and yellows, and they only talk about those exceptions. So the amount of data, I got the impression that it's almost like too much information, but that too much information is only taken notice of if there's something that goes out of spec. And that was quite profound to continuously see that. The broader organization has also, as a profound learning, they've got a dedicated operational excellence department. As a company would have a quality department or an HR or an IT department, they've got a dedicated operational excellence department. And there's a lot of things that are vested in that department. And of course, the lean management principles are also in that department. So what they do as a department, they create mass awareness through mass training throughout the organization, that everybody understand the basics of waste, productivity, housekeeping, and they do that over a 3-day training where they expose people right throughout the organization to those principles. The people are actually not complied to attend this training, but they are invited to participate willingly. And that creates a different culture. When people come and they learn about it, then they're not because they're being told by their managers to be there, but because they could nominate themselves if they want to go for that training. Out of that mass training, they identified different maturity levels of lean consultants. Then they would have a lean consultant, and then they would have a specialist, and then they would have a coach, and then they would have a master coach. And they built that capacity, and then they have external master coaches that coach the internal master coaches, that coach the specialists, that coach the consultants, that coach the masses. So there's a whole process of building this capacity of understanding of how to continuously improve and how to improve productivity. So they follow a modular approach. Again, this is confidential information, but in principle, they've got roughly 5 categories. They've got about 25 best practice methodologies, and it makes provision for applying different methodologies in different departments. But the basics of the KPIs, the housekeeping, problem solving is still in all departments. A quite interesting operational excellence learning that I've picked up from this organization is that anybody in the organization can request support for continuous improvement. Just as you would have a job card system or a service request or an IT service request, they've got an internal system where they log continuous improvement requests. So it comes to the operational excellence department. The operational excellence department would then receive that request, and then they would identify, because they know which people are capacitated to different maturity levels, they would choose a person from that department that requested this continuous improvement, and then they would allocate it to a person that is capacitated in that department to run this continuous improvement request in that department. So they overcome a lot of resistance by identifying there's a request in the department, but then they allocate a resource coming from that department that is capacitated to do the continuous improvement work, to do the project for improvement. And that's also a quite important principle. Right throughout the organization, they've got several training rooms. Now, again, this is an AI-generated image because I don't want to show confidential information, but it looks state-of-the-art training rooms that they have. They use it for training. They have an exceptionally high 5S standard in all their training rooms. They've got standard operating procedures in the rooms. And they use these rooms for anybody that would like to have meetings for continuous improvement, that can book these rooms and work on continuous improvement. So whether it is an A3 methodology, or whether it's they're mapping a process, or whether they're experimenting to do load leveling between workstations, they can use these training rooms as workshops for continuous improvement activities. And it's right throughout the organization, several workshops. There's no constraint of availability of continuous improvement rooms. Quite interesting principle. I've seen this principle also in other companies in other countries. I've seen it in Japan and in Germany, but also I've seen it here, that they have these continuous improvement shops. Now, a shop is almost like a small garage. This is a AI-generated image. Again, it's not, I don't show you in confidential information. And these shops contains raw material and consumables and SOPs how to use the continuous improvement shop. So if there is a need of somebody that would like to make a trolley with casters, or a rack, or a gravity feed rack with coasters, then they can go into that. These are open workshops. You walk in there are aluminium extrusions, fittings, consumables, and you can go and make your own thing that you need in your work area. So some of the continuous improvement requests, when it becomes a project, which becomes big, sometimes these people also use these continuous improvement shops to make things. So they're not dependent on the maintenance department to do things. They can go and do improvement things themselves. So once these continuous improvement requests are put into projects, then they have to follow a recipe of putting their request in a template for a project, and then that process follows a structured approach that a person is allocated to do the job, and then feedback and progress review and prioritization of resources and money goes into a steering committee system, whereby steering committee meet frequently, and these people doing continuous improvement has got this structure. It's not a formal management structure. It's a parallel steering committee structure which focuses on continuous improvement. and then can prioritize, because there's always a demand placed on money and resources, and that steering committee also guide the improvement stuff, but also to prioritize priorities. Another profound basic thing that I've observed was when people go into production, they are trained properly. So on the left-hand picture, you'll see people are properly trained how to do their job. With that, they have a robot simulation area where people can, in a simulated environment, not production, but simulated environment, go and practice to get up to speed and get up to the best quality of work. And once they master the skill to work in a safe simulated environment, the robot simulation area is similar to production environment. Then only they go into production. So people are skilled, then they can practice in a safe simulated environment, and then they go into production. And what they've also lately been experimented with is virtual reality training. So the virtual reality training is slightly cheaper than the robot simulation area, but it's still more expensive. And then people would put on the virtual reality, and then they would learn how to assemble the things, using virtual reality. Again, it's a safe environment, but then they practice those neural patterns that once they get into production, then they're used to the rhythm of doing a productive job. What stood out as again a basic thing is that these pictures are again AI generated because of confidentiality. So they've got stores where shop for consumables are already available for people to just go and get things if they need things. So it's spread on the shop floor, and there's no forms that you must fill in. You go and you take some of the consumables. So wasteful activities like walking, waiting, delays, paperwork is being minimized, or there's nothing. And then on the right-hand side, they sometimes have where they want to control the spares and make sure that spares are replenished. Then they have these vending machines on the shop floor where once you draw things from the vending machine spares, it reorders automatically. They've got profound recognition practices, and it's applied extensively. If a manager picks up a good thing that somebody has done, then a manager can put it into a formal system where they allocate it almost like e-bucks, like in F&B, and the e-bucks can then be used to buy things, after a while. And they wear branded T-shirts, and on the T-shirts, color and what's on there. Sometimes when you achieve certain things, like for instance, continuous improvement specialists wear a certain T-shirt to show that they are competent to do things. So it's a widely used recognition practices, and it's not monetary, but it's a strong recognition practice. Parallel to the operational excellence, they also spend time on making sure that if you expect of managers to work on different levels, they want to make sure that these guys have got solid management and leadership skills. So all managers are expected to go through a process of leadership development, and they also use technology. They use AIs to coach them. So you can have, sometimes you have a manager sitting there, and in his private space, he can talk to an AI coach, and the AI coach can give him feedback on their facial expression, their tone, what they should do different. But so they use technology for that leadership development and personal feedback. So if I can, I'm coming to the end to say I would like to quickly reflect on the things that I've shared now with you. And I would like to use an analogy. Now, this is again AI-generated pictures, except of Sia Kulisi. What I've picked up in this organization, if I can use the analogy of I want to lose weight, because sometimes we've got waste in organization. Then there's top left, if I'm overweight, I've got at least two options. The one option is I can go for surgery, maybe liposuction, and I can very quickly look better, but sustainability is an issue because I haven't changed my eating habits or my going to the gym habits. Or on the right-hand side, I've got an option to go to the gym, which will take time, But then I learn, I put in self-discipline, I put in my effort, I stick to a commitment. It shows in quality and in good practices. And then you find that, so what I've picked up in this operational excellence benchmark, that this company doesn't go for the quick liposuction thing. They build internal, long-term, sustainable things. And some of these things, the video that I've shown you is 10 years old. So 10 years ago, they had already these good daily management practices, and now they're even improving on that daily management practice. So it's not something that falls flat or doesn't work. It's almost like going to the gym every day, but every day you look better. But if you try to have a quick fix, it's not always working. So the key takeaways that I would like to leave with you is to say, there's that insane effort and workplace discipline to the basics is just profound. And that internal capacity to drive improvement and the continuous improvement culture that's within the organization that's supported by the Detroit continuous improvement culture of Ford and others, and Motown Records and music is supporting this culture that I've picked up in this organization. So, often there's people say, but lean is not working, or it's not, these practices are not working, but people don't understand it's a long term, it's a long game, and you have to work at it to get really the benefits of it. So Ben will now maybe elaborate on it, but I would like to, end my discussion here and ask for maybe questions or something. But the opportunity that we can discuss, if you're interested, to discuss a little bit further these things. We're planning to have a 2-day workshop on the 27th and 28th of May. It's about in 6 weeks' time in Cape Town. Ben has indicated, the first 10 people that would send a mail and want to attend this workshop that will go into much more detail, not only this, but a lot of other things, can get a discount for that. You can also contact me if you want to discuss. And this, I will post this now, just now in the chat, if I go out. The second opportunity that I would like to invite any one of you, if you want to soundboard your operational implementation plan, you can take this link, you can scan it as it now on your screen, and then next week or in 2 weeks' time, there's some scheduled time that if you want to engage with me, feel free to follow that link and soundboard maybe your plan, your operational plan, your lean plan with me. That's opportunity that you can have maybe moving forward. But Ben, so from my side, I don't know if there's any questions that has come up. I'm going to stop sharing now.
There are several questions that have come up, Jan, and thank you again. I mean, fantastic synopsis, summary of the learnings, and I think such a refreshing opportunity to go see an environment like that where you said it very well. The discipline shines through, and it really isn't anything magical or mysterious, things that are out of our reach potentially. Some technological advancement, of course, but more so from the day-to-day behaviors and the way those are manifest all the way down to the frontline value-add team members. So a couple of questions that came through, Jan, as we were going. The one interesting discussion point was from Sean here around the team meetings and the visual performance metrics. We were thinking, are those updated and reported manually, or do they use electronic systems? And it's been a point of discussion and maybe disagreement, but what do we note in the US about how they're doing that, whether manually or electronically?
Again, there's always this notion of either or. What I've picked up is they do both, and they do even more than that. So they use very sophisticated Power BI stuff, and then they've got other things I don't want to share with you in terms of technology, but they've got software that pushes data, and then they have the Excel, and they've got paperwork. So they've got a combination of all. So what I've picked up, they went not to jump a few steps. They went gradually and grow their understanding, and then they started to go electronic. But they didn't jump to electronic. I'm sure maybe in the new world that if you have an organization that's very solid in technology, I mean, but you've seen in this video, I mean, this is production people. So they like paperwork and they've got this extreme technology of, for example, if there's a line that needs 25 people to be fully ready for the line to run, if it's 23, then it shows up red. Then immediately you know you must make a plan. If there's 25 people, then they carry on. So they use exception reporting electronically, but they also use paper. And both works. And I've seen some managers that work with paper, and I've seen some managers using exceptional technology and digitized information. So I think my thinking would be, don't jump to electronic too quickly, because I've seen these guys taking a 20-year journey to get to some form of electronics.
Agreed. A follow-up question here from Nikki, Jan, is, are the CI or continuous improvement shops not restricted by EHS laws, so environmental health and safety laws? And Nikki, I might ask you to clarify that, but Jan, do you want to speak to that? What comes to mind?
I cannot vouch for whether it's lawful according to compliance requirements, but I do know that there's a work maturity that's there that most probably, for example, what they've told me there is that the unions are also looking at sense good, not nonsensical things. So if you've seen in the video people walk with short pants, they don't wear long pants because of safety, because they say if I have long pants or short pants, a flying piece of steel will still cut through my long pants. The long pants doesn't. So I'm not sure about the legal requirements of using the and comply to some safety or legislative things. But what I do know is, yeah, people are free to use that. I cannot vouch for whether it's legal or not legal or whatever the risks are.
Understood. Nikki, feel free to put in the chat if you have a follow-up to that to make it a bit more specific, but hopefully that helps. Brian, you've got a great question. I'm wondering, is this for Transnet or is this for a different company? Because if it's for Transnet, let's talk about this one. But it's, how do we look at 5S and timekeeping, and how do we bring those about at an early stage to realize some of those initial benefits? So what would you say, Jan, what's the real value of 5S and timekeeping in those early phases?
Yeah, if I think about my personal experience in some companies, in South African companies, there are companies with really poor timekeeping and some South African companies with good timekeeping. How they get it right, it starts with somebody must draw a line in the sand. And somebody must say, you're either on time, if you're not on time, I'm either going to motivate you to be on time or I'm going to threaten you to be on time. So depends on the culture, you must decide, but it's a standard that you must say, if I can get that basic standard of being on time and not wasting people's time, that culture of time is money. Time is, if I'm not on time, I'm wasting my quality of decision making. You know, it starts with how you do it. It depends on the culture that you're in. So I haven't got the solution. I can only say what I think, what works, what I've seen in South African companies, you can get timekeeping right, but it needs to start with somebody putting a line in the sand. That goes for housekeeping as well. So the housekeeping starts with the basics. You know, when you arrive in the organization, you know, what are your housekeeping standards? When you go home, what are your housekeeping standards? And then you must decide what is your technique to get people to do that. Last thing I want to say, all of us know it's good to go to the gym, but not all of us go to the gym every day. Now, Ben, you are motivated to practice, but I'm not as motivated as you. So this housekeeping is like going to the gym every day. You have to do housekeeping every day. You can't let it slip. So you can't take a break from housekeeping. You can't take a break from punctuality. It must be done every day.
If I can interject very briefly, Jan, I would say that the traditional moniker, no standard, no problem. So 5S and that early timekeeping allows you to have standards that we can agree to, that are simple and straightforward, easy for the team to understand. And if we can abide by those and understand the power of those, then we're able to keep evolving and progressing into more difficult standards to maintain as a team. So really good place to start, foundational place to start.
Absolutely.
Very good, Jan. A nice follow-up question as well from Sean, and maybe he pulled out your one great comment around, are you in charge of the problem? And does that presume or allude to whether someone has the necessary support and resources to deal with the problem if they're saying we're going to take charge of it?
I'm not sure I understand. Just help me to understand the context there.
I think it's a two-part question here, Jan. I think the one part is acknowledging the power of that one statement. Are you in charge of the problem? Or if somebody says, I'm taking charge of this problem. And then the follow-up to that is, do they also assume that by saying that they have the necessary support and resources available to them to take care of it?
So I think there's that culture of continuous improvement where people take ownership of not waiting for somebody else. But then there's a system that you can ask for assistance. So if you want to do in continuous improvement in this organization, then there is a system whereby you can log in and you request assistance, and then that assistance by time and money and resources and skilled people are then made available at your disposal. So it could be that a manager there say, I want to do this and this, and then he's got this operational excellence department that he can access. It's almost like the same as you have your maintenance department you can act. And I think that creates also a nice, how would I say it? People are confident that they won't hang out to dry because there's support for any kind of improvement. So there's improvement project, but then there's also these questions that we're now talking about. Some of those requests that comes on the job card is also, how do I deal with change management in my department of having a new tool set? So there's also these almost like hard projects and soft projects requests that comes in there. But having that confidence that somebody can help, I think that helps for that company culture.
Maybe one or two more brief questions, Jan, and then we'll call it a great day. But from Duani, the question is, what challenges do literacy levels, along with difference in cultures, pose to training, adoption of CI implementation, etc.? So literacy and culture differences.
I think the one thing, language, I've seen there in this organization, because English is understood by everybody and makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. It's easier. If you have the level of competence in that organization, I've engaged with team members in that factory, and it's almost like you talk to a managing director. So they can talk language of understanding economy. So that makes a difference. It does make a difference. So is it difficult to overcome in South African context? It's more difficult. Is it possible to overcome it? Yes, it just takes longer. But on that side, if you sit with low literacy levels in South African companies, yes, it makes it more difficult.
Anton, I see your hand up. Let me come to you for a final question momentarily, but I do have one quick clarification, Jan. You mentioned the dedicated CI team, and I just wondered, obviously some trade-offs there, so I was curious of how you saw that being a benefit, and then what you would say as a watch out for other companies, perhaps smaller companies, with that idea of a dedicated CI team.
I think because of the size of this company, they can afford to have a team like that. But it's a small team, full-time people, but the rest is dispersed throughout the organization by being trained and available, and they're assessed, and people know, they have a skills matrix that they know exactly who can do what sort of continuous improvement in the organization. So in a small organization, you don't have to have a dedicated big thing, but you can have, let's say, our benchmark, a thumbs up benchmark, you can have one full-time person for 500 people. But then if you have less than 500 people, then you must put it in 20% or 30% of somebody's job to take that responsibility. Because because we know that over time, any company have got some wasteful activities, compliance things, policies, decisions that creeps in as waste. So we must continuously work at getting rid of these things. And bad habits creep in as well. So you're not dependent on full-time people, but you can allocate the responsibility to people.
Yeah, one quick follow-up from me on that. With a dedicated CI team, the intent is that that CI team is not the only source of improvement activity. They are the coaches, they can be facilitators, they can be support resources to help with the charts and the visuals and things, but the responsibility really does start with the team member all the way through that leadership to have that mindset of problem solving and improvement. And then sure, if you have the luxury, as Jan said, of being a larger organization, then you can have those coaches in-house. Otherwise, obviously you want that embedded within your team. So Anton, go ahead with your question if you're happy to share.
Hi, Jan. Thanks very much. I want to pick up on your language. In particular, we've actually already had a discussion about your use of the word insane in this context, and I was somewhat puzzled initially, but what really shines through in this presentation is something I've also experienced and regard as very privileged, is that overseas you come across some organizations that are just way beyond anything you can experience here locally. And I suspect that your use of the word insane, and also I can see you're so energized by this experience, is bringing that insight that it is possible back here, and I really want to emphasize that in a way that intangible is the most important part of your presentation. And then lastly, I just want to point out to you, you'll know Rodriguez, the musician. Well, John Shook knew him in Detroit and asked me about Rodriguez when we met on occasion. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And maybe there's one final question there. Florence, are you happy to share? And Jan, feel free to answer Anton in any way as well. But Florence, do you want to come off mute?
Thank you very much, Ben. Yes, I'm Florence from Zimbabwe. And Jan, thank you very much for the presentation, very insightful, and especially on the issue where at times the greater part we tend to try and make quick fixes, which especially with the example which you gave on losing weight, I mean, it really is helpful. I really appreciate that, to say take time, and especially even from the automation space. Nowadays, people are quick to say, let's automate. But in instance, if you don't have a functional business model, even if you automate, really, it's garbage in, garbage out. However, I just wanted to pick your mind a bit. In an environment where you start the lean journey, you are somewhere, and before you know it, it crumbles like a deck of cards. And again, it's a lot of start stop. How can you make it stick for sustainability? I would really, I would love to hear how best sustainability can be forged. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Florence. So it's a long answer, but the short answer is, if I can use that analogy of sport, it doesn't take any rocket science or tricks to get people every day out of bed to go to the gym. But you must find in your organization, what is that work culture that you would like to establish, that people every day do the same thing. And if people say, I don't want to do lean, start, stop. Then I say, I know a lot of people that stop going to the gym. So it's not the gym. It is the discipline and the motivation of why should I get out of the bed and go to the gym. So sometimes, again, coming back to my analogy, so either you must motivate people to go to the gym every day, or you must threaten them. So you motivate to say, I'm going to pay you R5 every day to go to the gym, or I give you loyalty points, or you say, I'm going to threaten you, you're going to get a heart attack. And if you get a heart attack, suddenly people say, oh, can I go to the gym after I had a heart attack? So you must find out what works for your organization, that you can have that culture, that you stick to things every day, and you stick to going to the gym. Because 5S is every day you must do 5S. So what must you do with your organization to do 5S every day? So what I've picked up in countries, Rwanda says I think first Saturday of the month, everybody must clean the street. I mean, I don't know how they get it, or whether the police are shooting them if they don't clean it. But whether they motivate it, I don't know. But it starts somewhere, and the company can start by saying, every Wednesday we have between 1 and 2 we have a cleaning day, and then the MD must be the role model to clean as well, and not get the workers to clean the place, for example. I'm giving some ideas to say you must find that way that you get people every day to do the things that you want, the basic things.
Yeah. Thank you. Already I'm starting to have ideas in my mind as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
We got one more question, Jan, if you're happy to answer. And I appreciate people are ready to head off and have already headed off, but we will post a recording of today's webinar to YouTube. Obviously, we'd love for you to revisit it. And then you do see in the chat that both Jan and I have put information there. We truly would love to see you at our workshop coming up at the end of May. That's in Cape Town at the Vineyard Hotel, where we've done previous Lean Institute summits and had some great events. So we would be more than happy to have you join us for those 2 days. It'd be a fantastic opportunity to get one level deeper, obviously several levels deeper, I should say, on this content, and hear from Jan and obviously other interjection from the team. So if you need to leave, go ahead, but maybe one more question, or I actually see another hand up, Jan. So if you're cool to stick around, let's answer maybe one or two of these.
Yes.
But from LIA, it's not the gym, but it's the people. So on that point, what is the role of leadership in driving this type of culture?
I think it's a valid question. What is the role of leadership? If I think again back to my analogy, there's own responsibility and then somebody else's responsibility. So in my personal household, I'm sometimes, the people that know me know I've got an autistic son. So my household is sometimes just totally confused. So I sometimes have to attend to priorities that I cannot go to the gym. However, so if you think about leadership and everybody else, leadership is all levels in the organization, from a supervisor to middle management to top management. It starts with senior managers to say, what is the standard that we're striving for? Are we, like in South Africa, are we a Woolworths type of retail grocery store, or are we a Checkers? Do we go for cost, or do we go for quality? And that is a very important thing to say. What is that refrain of the same language that we must use continuously within the organization? And then you must say, what are those? Leadership has got a role to play, meaning they must also do things. So if it's housekeeping, their officers must be good standard. If they walk the floor, they must say, what is our standard? So somebody must at some point in time say, what is the standard that we want to achieve? And it's not only senior management, but it can start at all levels in the organization. And I think we mustn't also point fingers to senior management, because senior management would point finger at people to say, you must clean your place once you've worked. People at the shop floor look at leadership and they say, you guys are not on time with meetings. So everybody should take responsibility for their role in the organization. Maybe a last thing. You cannot fix everything at once. You must have maybe a focus of, in the next 3 months, we're going to look at the housekeeping, and the next 3 months after that, we'll look at punctuality. If you do too many things at once, then you'll run out of energy and motivation. So if you have and I like to look at 3 months sprints of changing things within the culture. You can't change it you can't change it within a week or 2 weeks, but a 3-month sprint for something it works nice.
Very good. And maybe on a final note, Edward, would you be willing to come off mute and share your question?
Hi. The company where you visited, did they have a grading system? And what grading system did they use? And how do they reward the different levels of employees? Do they have share options, or is it just direct salaries? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edward. If I understand the grading system, hierarchical grade levels of job grades, yes, they do have job grades. They do have different pay grades as well. So you have also junior and middle and senior people in a job. So they do have that. It's not, how would I say it? It's a typical normal organization. And as such, because it's a fairly big organization, they also have got good benefits. For example, their cafeteria is a big cafeteria. You can have a lot of different food there.